everyone. Welcome back. Please comment, subscribe, folks. Comment, subscribe, like the videos. Also share the videos. I want to thank everyone that does like, watch, and share my videos. You folks are the absolute best. Listen, folks, there's a link tree down below. Has a link to all of my social media platforms. Please go down there. Follow me across all my social media platforms and talk to me because I talk back. Also down there as well as links to all of my YouTube pages. Please go down there, subscribe to all my YouTube pages, and turn on your notifications so when I post content, you folks will be in the know. Now, with that said and done and put to the side, I've come to talk to you folks today about Joe Douglas. Oh yes, Joe Douglas sat down for a pre-draft press conference. And let me tell you, it's got some people in a tizzy, okay? The Bowers boys, the Bowers boys are hyped, okay? They are convinced at this point that Joe Douglas is prepping himself to draft Brock Bowers at 10th overall. I'm telling you, listen, we're going to have this discussion and we're going to talk about it right now, all right? Now, for those of you that may not know, Joe Douglas sat down with the media today and spoke with them about, the pre-draft process and what they've been doing. And he talked about how him and the staff have really been sitting down, collaborating on different ideas, talking about players, having discussing about, certain scenarios, different things that can happen, putting themselves in uncomfortable positions. Because a lot of people believe that 4 quarterbacks are going to go off the board early, right? And so he said, hey, we're preparing ourselves for different scenarios, but one of them, some of them aren't even, 4 quarterbacks coming off the board. There's some scenarios where we're looking at and we're preparing ourselves for a bunch of skill players to come off of the board. And then what? We're putting ourselves, again, in uncomfortable positions. He also talked about, the tight end position as well early. He talked about being happy with Ruckert and Conklin and how if somebody was brought in, they would really have to fight. He talked about the depth of the football team as well, about a lot of players that they bring in having to fight to, gain their spot and really ground themselves within this football team and fight for their playing time as well. As we know, it's competition at every position here. That's always been the mantra, since Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh have been in the building. Now, we talk about the tight end position. And a little bit later on in the press conference, he was asked about playmakers, okay? Offensive playmakers, and what he thought of the playmakers that were available in this draft. And he talked about basically there's all kinds of playmakers. How, basically whatever flavor you like, they're out there. You got guys that are great blockers. You got guys that are, great after the catch, guys that can get down the field, guys that run amazing routes, guys that can just do it all, right? Guys that can do it all. He talked about the wide receiver position, all of that. But then he honed in, okay? And this is where the Bowers boys, took off and went straight to the moon with it, okay? He honed in particularly on the tight end position. And he said this, and I want to quote him, okay? He talked about how, you look at the playmakers in the situations, even you look at the tight end position. There's a tight end that's a Swiss Army knife that can move all around the formation and stress the defense. Oh, brother, that was all that was needed. That was all that was needed. Now, I want to be very clear, okay? I want to be clear about this because anytime that you talk about Brock Bowers, okay? Anytime you talk about Bowers, if you don't praise him to the moon, the Bowers boys will come out of the walls and try to destroy you. Settle down. Settle down, guys, okay? Settle down, all right? Listen, I think Bowers is a phenomenal player. I think he's a phenomenal player. I'm just not in the class of wanting him to be drafted at 10, especially when we have the issues that we have along the offensive line. And we're going to touch on that in a second. Now, after he said that about Brock Bowers, he was then continued and pressed by the media, right? One of the last questions that they asked him was about the tight end position becoming more of a necessity within the league with the impact that they've had. And he went on to talk about it. He said when you look at guys like Laporta and, what Kittle is doing clearly in San Francisco, what Kelsey has done with the Chiefs as well, you're starting to see, the impact of the right tight end. How They create mismatch about how the dynamic playmaking ability and all of those things. So he started to talk. He talked about that as well. And again, it's got the Bowers boys off the chain. Okay, they are convinced that he is taking Brock Bowers at 10. And I'm not saying that he's going to do that, but I will say that we clearly understand and see that they hold Brock Bowers in a high regard. Of course, everybody does. Everybody thinks he's a great player. But I don't know if this is how it's going to pan out, and this could be a lot of smoke and mirrors. But comment down below. Let me know what y'all think about that. Now, speaking about the offensive line, okay? He talked about the offensive line, the age and the injuries. You know, along the offensive line, we see in the age with Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, the injuries as well, Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, being something to be mindful of as they go into the draft. And that's where I'm at. That's what I'm very mindful of, is that, hey, if Tyron Smith goes down, what then? Okay? It's not like he don't have a long history of doing that. This could be another year where he only plays 4 games in a season. And then who's going to go out there and play left tackle? Please do not talk to me about Carter Warren being a New York Jets starting left tackle. Not in a Super Bowl or bust year, and not with my guy Aaron Rodgers, you know, having to be behind that. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. All right. Speaking of injuries, because we talk about Morgan Moses and we talk about, Tyron Smith, but also there's another guy on this offensive line that has, a bit of an injury history, especially as of recent. The last 2 years, he's missed a lot of time. Elijah Vera Tucker. They asked him about Elijah Vera Tucker as well, and he didn't necessarily commit to signing his 5th-year option, okay? Now, of course, they still have time to do that, and he talked about that. He said, hey, we'll worry about that, post-draft, basically. But that's coming up. I believe it's May 2nd they're going to have to figure that out, okay? So we'll see what happens going forward. I know if they sign him, that 5th-year option, it carries a $15 million, I think it's like $15.3 million tag to it. But there's time. But, that's coming around the bend. And I hope that they do that. I understand there's been an injury history there, but I hope that they do that because AVT, when he has been fully healthy and ready to go, he has been unbelievable. Okay? Now, they also spoke about Zach Wilson as well. Hey, guys. Anybody know? Zach Wilson is still on this roster. Shh. Shh. Don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody. I've been telling everybody about this. I've been talking about this consistently, right? I talked about this at the end of the season. I was asking people questions constantly, and they said, oh, Joe, he'll be traded, before free agency. He'll be traded during free agency. He's still here. He's still here. And when the media asked Joe Douglas about him, he said that Zach Wilson was an asset, the same way that Woody Johnson said Zach Wilson was an asset. But Joe Douglas also went on to say that they are still trying to trade Zach Wilson, and they are still listening to trade offers. And to this point, again, nothing's happened because he's still here. And I'm telling you, I don't think they're going to be able to get rid of Zach Wilson. I truly don't. I don't think anyone wants him. There were a lot of teams out there that had openings for quarterbacks, and they either filled the openings or it looks like they're going to go into the draft and grab one. I feel like what the Jets are going to have to do if they really going to get rid of Zach Wilson is they're going to have to tie a pick to him as well to get some compensation back, and they're going to have to eat the contract. And even that is something where I feel like a lot of teams are going to be like, basically, what am I going to do with him? He's been so up and down, and there's been some flashes, but there's been more bad than flashes. And then a lot of those reports about him not being willing to come back out on the field when the Jets wanted to go back to him, to become a starter once they went away from him, I'm pretty sure has not helped his trade value either, because then they start to question his heart. He's been benched multiple times before. There's questions about his confidence in himself as well as a player. All of those things, I'm sure there's a lot of teams that want to stray away from that, okay? So, but we'll see, okay? Maybe that trade happens during the draft. Who knows? Maybe he gets dealt off, but we'll see what happens. He did talk about, the Jets possibly taking a quarterback in this upcoming draft and wanting to turn the Jets into a quarterback factory like the Packers used to be. They took Brunell, I believe, in like the 5th round of the draft or something like that. They had Hasselbeck there at one point. I think they had like Brooks there at one point. And they were able to groom these young quarterbacks all while Brett Favre was doing his thing around it. Hell, you look at Aaron Rodgers was there, right? Look, Aaron Rodgers was behind Brett Favre for a little bit, and then he eventually got his time, and look at where he's at now, and look at what he's done in this league, right? So you talked about that too, so we'll see what the New York Jets do as far as quarterback. I think if they do take one, it's going to be pretty late in the draft because there are so many other positions that I think are very, very much, needed some improvement and needed some more bodies, particularly middle linebacker. That's a position that I've been talking about that no one is discussing. If CJ Mosley goes down or we move on from CJ Mosley, there's no one behind him at all. That's a starting quality. Nothing. So that's something we might be looking at in the mid to late rounds of the draft as well, trying to get a young guy in here that can eventually take over that position. But we'll see what happens with the quarterback position, all right? So comment down below. Let me know what you folks think. How do you folks feel about, this talk about Brock Bowers just starting to blow off the roof now? Do you think that Brock Bowers is going to be the selection? Comment down below. What are your thoughts about what Joe Douglas said? Also, give me your thoughts about Zach Wilson. Still here on this roster. When do you think the Jets will get rid of him, if they get rid of him? I think he could end up being here as a third-string quarterback maybe. I don't know if they're going to get rid of him. I'm telling you. Comment down below. Let me know what you folks think. You folks have a good one. Peace.